Title: Whispers of the Hollow. 7 friends: Liam, Ava, Chris, Zoe, Mark, Emma, and Finn had been planning their camping trip for months. The idea was simple: escape the chaos of city life, hike through the dense wilderness, and bask under the stars by a crackling fire. They had no idea that their adventure would lead them to something much darker than they'd ever imagined. The journey started off full of laughter. They trekked through the lush forest, following a narrow trail that wound deeper into the mountains. They spent the first night under the canopy of trees, telling stories and roasting marshmallows by the fire. But the next day, as they hiked further, something felt off. The woods were unnaturally silent. No birds, no rustling of leaves, just an oppressive quiet that weighed on them. Zoe, always the adventurous one, noticed an odd break in the trees. A wide, almost unnatural clearing. "Let's cut through here," she suggested, her voice tinged with excitement. The others hesitated but followed her lead, eager to explore new terrain. What they didn't know was that they had just stepped into the domain of the HoLLOW village, a place that existed beyond the reach of ordinary maps. As they wandered deeper, the forest grew thicker, the air colder, and the light dimmer. And then, without warning, they stumbled upon a small, dilapidated village, a cluster of weathered huts made of rotting wood and animal hides. The village looked abandoned, but something about it felt wrong. The friends couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. "We should go back," Mark suggested nervously. "This place is off." But it was too late. Figures emerged from the shadows, tall, gaunt people with hollow eyes, their faces twisted into strange, unsettling expressions. They were dressed in rags, with bodies unnaturally thin, as though they hadn't seen food in weeks. Without a word, the villagers surrounded the group, and before anyone could react, they were separated and dragged into different huts. Liam tried to fight back, but one of the villagers struck him with a wooden staff, knocking him unconscious. When he awoke, he was bound to a stone slab, his limbs tied tightly. Ava, Chris, and the others were in similar positions. They could only hear the terrifying guttural chants echoing from nearby huts. "What is this?" Ava whispered, her voice trembling with fear. "We shouldn't have come here," Emma replied, her voice hollow with realization. It became clear that the villagers were not mere survivors of some long-forgotten plague. They were cannibals, primal, twisted, and insatiable. The whole village seemed to exist on the fringes of human decency, where survival meant more than just hunting animals. It meant hunting humans. As night fell, the villagers began their ritual. Liam, the closest to a window, saw something that made his stomach turn. One by one, his friends were dragged from the huts, their cries muffled by the thick forest air, and vanished into the darkness. Then, Mark, always the problem solver, managed to free himself. His hands bloodied from struggling with the ropes. He broke free from his shackles and stealthily made his way to the other huts. He found Zoe first, her eyes wide with terror but still alive, barely. Then he found Emma and Finn, unfortunately too late for Ava and Chris, who were already gone. "Go, go," he whispered frantically. "We need to get out of here. Now." Together, Mark, Zoe, Emma, and Finn ran into the forest, dodging through the trees as the villagers gave chase. Their legs burned, but they pushed on, desperate for escape. The sound of footsteps behind them was relentless, growing closer with each passing second. But as the group reached the edge of the forest, Zoe collapsed, tripping on a hidden root. Before she could rise, someone, dragged her back into the woods. Mark screamed, but there was nothing they could do. The villagers were closing in fast. Only Mark and Emma made it out of the woods, stumbling into the nearby highway, where they flagged down a passing car. The driver stopped, confused but sympathetic, and took them to the nearest town. They were finally safe. But as they tried to piece together their experience, they realized that the village had vanished. It was as if the land had swallowed it whole. But the horror didn't end there. 2 weeks later, Mark was recovering in his apartment, trying to erase the images of his friends' suffering. He thought he was safe. But one night, just as he was drifting off to sleep, he heard a soft, familiar whisper. "Mark." He shot up in bed, heart pounding. The voice was unmistakable. It was Liam's. He rushed to the window, but the night outside was still. The voice came again, this time louder. "Mark, come back." In the darkness, Mark saw a figure standing at the edge of his driveway. He didn't recognize the face, but there was something wrong about the way it moved, unnaturally slow, its limbs stiff and jerky. It looked like someone who had been dead for days. A figure emerged from the shadows, and Mark's blood ran cold. It was Liam. His skin was pale, his eyes empty sockets. But it wasn't Liam anymore. It was something else. As the figure inched closer, Mark's heart raced with panic. The memories of the HoLLOW village, the screams, the cannibals, flooded his mind. He backed away, but it was too late. With one swift motion, the figure lunged. Mark tried to scream, but the world went black. The next morning, the authorities found his body in the yard, mutilated, the wounds too savage for even the most advanced forensics to comprehend. The HoLLOW village was never found again, and no one would ever know the fate of the 7 friends who ventured too far into the unknown. But sometimes, in the dead of night, people hear whispers carried on the wind, whispers from the HoLLOW, and if you listen closely enough, you might hear their voices too. That's not the end. The whispers continue. Share your own HoLLOW village experiences in the comments below.